Welcome to our MA student panel. My name is Tanya Romero. I'm a senior admissions counselor here at PAU. I work primarily with the undergraduate and MA programs. So if you are interested in the MA, then you will most likely speak with me at some point. And I think I see some familiar names, so that's wonderful. And I'm really excited to be joined by some of our current and former MA and counseling students, David, Lisa, and Hannah. They will be sharing their experiences in our MA program and hopefully be giving you all a better idea of what the student experience can look like within this program. So I will go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Hannah Button. I use she, they pronouns, and I guess as of Tuesday, I'll be done with my first full year in the program.
David here. I'm in Oakland, California. He and whatever. I mean that seriously, not in a flippant way at all. Call me what you want. And I graduated from the master's program in December. And I've had all sorts of great experiences since then too. I'll share with you.
Hi, I'm Lisa and she, her, and I just am finishing my 6th quarter out of 9. So I'm almost there.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, we're just going to go ahead and jump into it. So each of our panelists are going to share their PAU experiences, and then we'll have some time afterwards for audience questions. And I'll be keeping an eye on in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there in the meantime. But with that being said, Hannah, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Thanks for having me, everyone. I'm, like I mentioned, just finished my first full year of the program. I'm also in the middle of finals and moving in with my partner this weekend, so forgive me if I'm a bit scattered. But I'm really happy to be here, and I was really excited to be asked to be on this panel because I feel like I had a sort of interesting path getting to PAU, and I've really loved every minute since. So to sort of dive into my backstory getting here, I was interested in PAU in part because the pandemic hit in undergrad for me. I was about halfway through. It was really hard to adapt because the programs were extremely disoriented and my professors struggled a lot to figure out a way to make their classes work, and it was messy, which all made sense. It was a challenge for everyone, but I really had myself doubting at times if the education I was receiving was even worth what I was paying and what I was putting myself through, trying to adjust. But once I did adjust, I actually found that I did a lot better in that environment than many of my peers and better than I had before. I realized that was because of the control online learning gave me over my learning environment. As a neurodivergent student with sensory issues and back pain, I have to put a lot of mental load into accommodating myself for an in-person learning environment before I ever even step in the classroom. But online learning gives me the opportunity to focus that energy on my classes. I've got a back heater on right now and y'all can't even see it, and I am living my best life as a student. To exist in a comfortable space allowed me to relax my mind before class and unwind after, which really improved my attention, my retention, engagement, and really my comfort in the classroom. And it really let me practice wellness as a student. So when I decided it was time to pursue a counseling degree, of all things from there, that wellness and calm was really important to me, so that I could learn to the best of my ability. But that also scared me because I think, as we all know, counseling is really skills based. That doesn't always translate well to online learning. But while I was in that place and as I graduated, I'd moved back in with my parents, and so had my older sister, to just get through more of the pandemic. And I actually got to see my sister go through the PAU Masters in Counseling program. She was enrolled here a couple years ago, and I got to see her program adapt to online learning with a lot more ease, of course. But I also got to see her program work to accommodate students in the in-person things they did, like in practicum, and they were able to do all the things that they couldn't do in person that were challenging, but it never compromised on her education the whole way throughout. I got to see her learn and grow and do all the things that I was scared that an online program wouldn't deliver, and the things that I had seen my friends and other fully online master's programs walk away from without ever even touching on, let alone learning. And so that was around when I knew I was going to apply to PAU, because I didn't think I would find a place that would both allow me to meet my own learning environment and accessibility needs and still give me all the outcomes I knew I needed in order to do this job well. I was afraid there just wasn't a place that someone with my needs could become who I wanted to be. But PAU really spoke to that part of me and made me believe that I could find an environment to become a good counselor. Something else about PAU that really pulled me in was when I saw my sister develop connections with almost every one of her professors, which I had completely lost out on in my online education previously. The professors here are so kind and caring and informed, and they really understand how honestly afraid a lot of us are to do this job poorly. They understand what the job means to us, like looking around this room, I'm sure we all came here for a lot of different reasons, but for those looking at counseling, I bet a lot of it was related to a personal relationship with counseling, whether that be from a loss, a trauma, a challenge, being a part of a marginalized population, something that made us feel like we could grow to support others and maybe be the type of support that we were missing at some point in time. And our professors really understand that and how much you want to do it right. And they will sit and help you process that. They'll help you hone in on your skills, find resources, and they will create learning opportunities to explore what you want to. That part actually changed my whole track in the program, actually. I was originally debating between marriage and family track or the licensed professional clinical counselor. I want to work with a wide range of populations, including a focus on neurodivergent and queer youth, which would require a lot of working with families and parents, and made me lean towards MFT. But with MFT, you don't get the opportunity to take electives because you have to take family systems theory and couples counseling. And I was worried that without the LPCC track and the electives, I wouldn't get enough opportunities to explore my target populations. But I realized very quickly going through the program that there are opportunities to cater your education to your own learning goals all the way through various assignments and projects. For example, I'm currently in a psychopharmacology course, and I know that may not be the one that many of us look at and get excited about. Since many of us didn't get here due to our love of pharmacokinetics and biology. But this has actually been one of my favorite finals to work on because we get to choose a diagnosis, then explore a lot of areas of medication treatment for that diagnosis. And I chose ADHD, and I'm now able to walk away from this course with a fairly nuanced and concrete understanding of the mechanisms of action and side effects of various ADHD treatments when I treat that population. And I get to know I will be a better counselor because of it, which is just really exciting. I love being able to tailor it to who I want to. And there are so many opportunities at PAU to carve your own path to meet your learning needs. All of the bigger papers and projects and almost every course I've had thus far allow a lot of flexibility to hone in on something I feel passionate about, whether that's a population I want to serve, an advocacy issue I want to address, or even a bias of my own that I feel I need to challenge. We're just given every opportunity to grow in ways that will actually translate concretely to our own practice as counselors. And our professors are really, really eager to help you make the most of your education here. I can tell you easily that every professor I've ever had here knows me by name, knows my passions, and a lot of them have reached out even after I left their course with resources or learning opportunities that they heard about that they thought would resonate with me, which is just such a cool thing for me. I haven't had a professor engage with what I want to learn so much. There are also plenty of other ways I've been able to continue learning in this program outside of the classroom. There are opportunities to work for professors or get involved in clubs, both of which I'm doing right now. For example, I joined Chi Sigma Iota, which is CSI, the Counseling Honor Society, and I'm currently the co-chair of the Professional Development Committee, which, by the way, if anyone would like information on that, reach out. I'd love to talk. but it's also allowed me to push initiatives and learning opportunities for individual students, the whole of the PAU student body, and outside in the greater counseling world. I've been able to survey our student body on areas of growth and serve my peers by making changes at PAU, which just feels absolutely incredible to be able to actually influence your learning environment and make it better for yourself and others coming after. That's not work that I thought I would be able to do until I had more experience in this profession in terms of advocacy and making concrete change. I've also gotten to contribute through concrete job opportunities. I'm currently moving forward with starting a research position with Dr. Snow, who is incredible and just America's sweetheart, if I'm being honest. And I got the opportunity because we were working together at my previous PAU job, which was as a student assistant for the Counselor Education Distance Learning Conference, where I got to be involved in the marketing team and advertising the conference to peers and other professionals. So I got to know so many other professionals, including people who specialize in populations I might want to work with, and develop connections, and also learn more about the research my professors are conducting, which was just all so fascinating and exciting. And I got a lot of tangible and community takeaways, which is really cool. PE was also the one hosting that conference, and the university really likes to inform students about educational opportunities that are out there. There's almost always at least something coming up that we can benefit from. Actually, because I've got a little bit more time, we get a weekly newsletter. Most universities will send one out, and I actually read this one. I did not, in all honesty, no disrespect to my undergrad, but I did not thoroughly check all of their weekly emails because a lot of it was not relevant to me or not even really the opportunity it was like framed to be. But I have read every weekly newsletter here because everyone has given me a concrete opportunity to become a better counselor. They give a club or an organization to join, or a conference students can attend for free, or speakers outside of PAU that are just excited to share with our environment, because we cultivate those connections with outside universities and professors to really give the students all we can, which is super cool. And yeah, I think that my education at PAU has been characterized by that above all else, like just opportunities. That is what they care about. In spite of my personal barriers, the barriers of online education, meeting CACREP requirements, and students scattered all over, I have found every opportunity to be a part of a community of growth here. So I think that's my big takeaway and why I cannot recommend PAU enough. So yeah, it's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That was very well said. David, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at PAU?
I'm still absorbing everything Hannah said. Oh. Yeah, it gave me a lot to think about. I'm the one who graduated recently, and I think that one of the ways to look at what I learned at PAU was how much focus there is on acceptance, how important advocacy is, and ultimately attachment and non-attachment, the flip side to attachment. So the acceptance is a counterbalance to diagnostics. We learn diagnostics for sure, and it's super helpful to know what's in the DSM-5. And it's also kind of fun if you're that geeky kind of person, and I'm that geeky kind of person. But in practice, it's really about acceptance of what's in front of you. What's, as a therapist, who's in front of you, who is in front of you, not what their diagnosis is. Yeah. And so it's more challenging as a human to accept the person in front of you than it is to give them a diagnosis. And that's where the attachment part comes in, that we learn as students at PAU, not just kind of in theory, but more in the, let's say, the counseling skills and the practicum parts, and there's also a couple of other areas where we get to practice our craft. And Hannah rightly talked about the skills aspect, but in the end, when you're with somebody in session, the skills kind of just melt away, and it's really who you are, and who they are, and that's that attachment that you build with somebody, that relationship that you build with somebody, and then you're on the hook, right, for managing your boundaries, being aware, self-aware of how you're being with that person, but also that you're modeling a certain kind of set of behaviors and attitudes for them to pick up as well. And boy, did I learn that in spades, because it's like either you're attached to the real person, or you're attached to like their negative fantasy of themselves, or the diagnostic caricature of themselves. And to peel all of that stuff away is where the attachment comes in. Then we can learn how to help that person grow to accept themselves and to advocate for themselves. And that's the other aspect. And Hannah said all I could say about advocacy, really, that it's not just about getting the grade, let's say, or getting the client, or billing the hours. It's really advocacy is core, and advocacy is often considered that's an LCSW sort of thing. You're advocating for people and helping them at practical levels. But counseling is amazing because it's like it's everything. Recognizing that person who's in front of you, and those are the sort of things I learned at PAU that I didn't really know about before I entered PAU. I've had a couple of careers before, and my awakening to the potential of therapy as a career came in big doses that I couldn't necessarily metabolize. But I did learn right before the right before the pandemic that I needed to do something different than what I was doing. And I decided on therapy, in part because I wanted a whole new identity to work from, including some of the principles that I just shared with you. Yeah, and that identity shift, I'm not the only one, I think, who's gone through PAU and has felt that identity shift. For some of us, it's like, a new dimension that hadn't been exercised before. For some of us, it's just a new identity altogether that is more consistent with who we are as in our deep self. And there's lots of space for that exploration at PAU. And it often comes up around how you create community. Again, I could do no better than Hannah in terms of explaining some of the ways that you can connect. The other thing I'll add to that is that everybody's like everybody in that they're all kind of shy. There's a lot of introverts, quote unquote, in the counseling field, and they're just as afraid as you are reaching out and saying stuff, and so if you want to get that vibe, you can be like a bold person or not. It doesn't matter. You just have a need, and everybody else has a need for connection as well. So just bear that in mind when it comes to community. It never hurts to try. Start with gratitude and curiosity. Those are always, everybody's a sucker for those two things, right? Yeah, the inclusivity at PAU is so deep and authentic and wild. And I'll just say that that I just felt like, in a sense, it's like this is it's the actual real world, and when people are actually noting the differences and the intersectionalities, and then going towards those intersectionalities. I can intersect with you in this way too. It's less than an emphasis on difference than it is on the overlaps. And I'll say one more thing and then another thing. One more thing is about family systems, which Hannah mentioned, and the value of that, regardless of it, whether you're LPCC or MFT, and don't even worry about that for now, by the way. Like, you'll figure that out in the future. It's not to worry about. Don't worry about it. Family systems are awesome. External family systems. We are who we think we are who we think we are because of how we were raised. There's also internal family systems as well, which is my modus operandi as a therapist. You may not get that training at PAU, you may, I'm not sure. But the fact is that we have this opportunity to learn about how we form ourselves in relationship to one another. Super valuable. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that PAU has kind of been the gift that keeps on giving. I'm working with four PAU students. Now I work at two agencies. One's a grief counseling center, and another one's is a community mental health center. Yeah, and I'm just so happy to see a PAU student. There's a special connection there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. That was incredibly insightful. Lisa, can you share about your time in our MA program?
Sure. Hard to follow you two. So let's see. I just want to start with my quick beginning, which was, this was not a career that I envisioned having. And in fact, 20 years ago, I shouldn't have had this career. I shouldn't have ever thought about it. And but 20 years later, a couple of careers, as David said, I had them over COVID. I ended up moving from New York City, where I'd lived for 25 years, back to California, where I was raised. And I was looking for a new start. I think a new identity would be a great thing to say, but I loved school, but I didn't really want to go back to school, if only just for taking on the financial responsibility. Like, at my age, I just didn't want to do that. But to be honest, like, I just started, I had a friend, actually, David and I have a mutual friend who did this, and she just was having such an incredible life and experience that I just thought it's worth looking into. And honestly, when I went to the same situation at PAU, I was just so impressed by everything I saw. And one of the things that stands out that really does embody, I think, what is the core of the feeling at PAU was Dr. Snow literally saying, I hire people because they are nice people. That's been a part of his goal since the beginning. And obviously they're brilliant people, they're kind people, but having worked for 20 plus years in New York City, where nobody keeps a job if they're nice, I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Can it be true? It can be true. It's amazing. The professors, I think, the work that we do at the university, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of really good work, and work that I've told friends at other schools the kind of projects I'm doing, and they say, I'm jealous. We're doing all these like papers. We do papers, but really a lot of the assignments that we do, as Hannah said, I took some notes here, and she said, accommodate to your own learning goals, carve your own path. I think a lot of the assignments that we get to do are really designed to get us in tune with who we are as a person, really, really encourage what you want to do. They don't give you a paper with citations just to give you a paper with citations because it's grad school. I literally don't think I've had that assignment. Every single assignment feels like something designed to make you think about the work, about a diagnosis, about yourself. And so it's really rewarding in that way, because even if you are doing this work, you can feel this work. You're not like trapped with this like weight of, why am I doing this? You are doing it, and you're knowing why you're doing this. Another thing I feel that's really important from my experience that I would love to bring up is kind of that was really surprising and probably didn't need to be so surprising, but surprising and a gift. And that is how much it has forced me to the work itself, and also now being in the internship, how much that has forced me to kind of unpack myself, and I came here because of many years of great therapy, so I wouldn't have come here if I didn't say, wow, I really know that therapy can make a difference, that people can grow emotionally, that it can make such an incredible difference in people's experience of life. So, I came here with that headspace, and then really quickly started recognizing that habits that I had weren't so helpful for me anymore. I'm just going to pull out, example number one, which is an easy one, which was, great, I'm starting grad school. What do I have to do? And just like this type A, and I don't even think for New York, I was type A. For New York, I was not type A, but I had learned to work at that speed with that level of anxiety and, just like get things done, not let things resonate, think. And I very quickly could recognize that this wasn't going to be a helpful thing in this career. And it has been a work, I've been a work in progress since day one, since day one of me identifying that, how to, take it down a notch, take it down another notch. And I'm grateful for that, because I think of like that person, it makes me a little nervous now thinking about that person. And and it's a really, again, it's this incredible gift, having had careers before, to suddenly be in a career that really mandates that you stay sane yourself. To me, I'm still astonished at that, and being in an internship now, working with clients, understanding that if I go in there with a certain kind of energy, with a certain active bias, with anything that is normal for all of us, it's not like we're all terrible people and we have to be fixed. It's just that we have, I think I'll speak for myself. There are things that need to be unpacked and looked at and acknowledged. And I feel like the support system at the university is fantastic for that. I think the cohort that I am in is just filled with fantastic people. And, I've only met people in person a couple of times, but that's just a real joy. But we actually, it's really funny how well you get to know people just by seeing them over and over like this, how well you can see them change. I think one of the things that David was pointing out is how we're all a little nervous and scared. And I just, I remember when our first clinical skills, and you're just like, so like, I can't do this. Oh my God, this is so humiliating. And everyone's going to see how terrible I am and how I should just leave. And, just the fact that we were all, and I'm like, I'm with these wonderful people and they're going to find out. And meanwhile, working with people who have a dream about being a therapist, like these people are good people. We're understanding, we're vulnerable. It's amazing. So anyway, I think there's just a lot of gifts, very personal gifts that are enabled through this training. And expired corporate lawyer. Yeah, great. I get that. So yeah, I think that is what I wanted to say. And yeah, and I think otherwise also I have a lot of insight about the first semester or first quarter of internship too. And that is like really going into the fire. But I think the last sentence I want to say is that in many ways, this work is so hard, in many ways that you won't expect. Again, like unpacking yourself. But I also think it's hard because it has to be. I think, again, the work that PAU asks us to do is amazing, insightful, helpful, not extraneous just to check it off. But, I feel because of the work that I'm doing in all aspects, that when I sit down to with a client, while I still don't really know what I'm doing that much, I know enough. And I have a person here that deserves to be supporting another person. And that's because of this work. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lisa, and for all of you for sharing incredible points, a lot to think about. And I see the questions trickling into the chat, so I'm just going to go ahead and open it up for questions if anyone wants to raise their hand or drop them in the chat. I believe one of the first questions I saw was about the internship, and any of you guys can answer just kind of what your experience was with finding an internship. There's a question about if your internship was paid. Anything you can tell us about what that experience was like?
I'll since I'm in the internship, I'll go briefly. It was easier than I thought it would be. I went in there going like, oh my God, I don't have any experience. How is anyone going to talk to me? And, I put together what experience I had and people talked to me. And I got a great internship. It's not paid. I think I didn't even think about it being paid, but I do know a lot of people who, well, not a lot, but they are paid. There are paid internships. There are paid internships. Getting an internship was surprisingly less difficult than I thought it would be. And I think one of the things that was really helpful, just a general assignment about an idea about internships, was that not even to think too much about it, because it really is like the beginning level of your experience, and that we are going to, that by nature of this career, unless maybe you have a very specialized area that you only want to do one thing. I'm not like that. I'm looking for as much experience and such. So, my friend was just like, if it looks good, sounds good, ask some people, just do it, because whatever experience you have is going to be good. And it's a much longer discussion about internships themselves, but it's definitely worthwhile.
If I can jump in really quick there. I haven't started practicum yet, so feel free to fully ignore me. But I have recently secured my practicum site, and I specifically am at a paid site because I cannot afford to work and commute far for a practicum site for disability reasons. I needed that. And so that was something I did have to seek out a little bit sooner and get ahead of in terms of my peers. However, Palo Alto has a very good resource for finding sites. I believe, I just looked over and tried to do the math. I believe there are over 4,000 sites that Palo Alto is connected with that are pre-approved with the program. It is in an online service called Tavera that you will learn more about through the program. We use it for a lot of our assessments and resources. And the one thing I would say is start looking earlier. If you, like Lisa mentioned, if you have a passion population, one that's very specific that you'd like to work with, if you are looking for a paid site, or if you cannot commute far. But for those of you that are closer to more hub areas like Palo Alto, or I'm sort of near San Francisco and Oakland, if you can get to a spot like that, you will find a lot more site options. If you're in somewhere a little bit more rural or spread out, you might need to start looking sooner. Just a heads up on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Melanie, I think your hand is up. Did you want to ask a question?
Hi, thanks everybody for all your wonderful input. This is just sort of I have two questions for any of you. Did you feel that you were guided by the professors as far as they got to know you? Did they kind of help guide you into maybe a direction that they see you have a greater potential, or that you would be a really good match? Just trying to see how much they influenced your decision and what specialty to kind of go into. That's my first question. And then I have another follow-up one, but I'll just kind of leave it at that. Does that make sense? So any of you who want to answer, go for it.
The support is certainly there. And I think that all of, think about the counseling MA anywhere you go is very practically oriented. I mean, there's theory and all that kind of stuff and vignettes, but in the end, they know that you're there to, change your deal. And whatever that deal was before, it's going to be different now once you become a therapist. And so they're just, so at a meta level, just as we're caring for others as they go through change as therapists, they're going to see us change over the course of, so I came in thinking I was going to be doing one thing, but then something happened and all of a sudden, like, I'm going to do grief counseling. And nobody got me there, but it was within the context of PA that I got there. And then boom, there it was, having the Pathways Home Hospice was there, and as well as a few others. And I started working there. Almost 2 years later, it'll be 2 years in August, I'm still working there. And by the way, I'm still not getting paid there. There's more to say about like what that whole thing is about paid and not paid. But what I'll say is some of the most important experiences I've ever had in my life are owing to the work that I've done at that hospice. So screw the money.
So thank you. I appreciate that. It sounds like PAU is basically creating this space for you to evolve naturally and just giving you that support to find your groove, which sounds great. My other question is for any of three of you, was there any area in PAU that was not any type of theory or method that was not represented or taught that you would have liked to have been exposed to, basically trying to see if there's areas that didn't give you kind of what you wanted,
Can I answer that? And maybe you guys are going to have a different answer, but I think this is a fair thing to say that we have like a theory class, but everything, like it's just everything. And I think they do a good job at like throwing everything in there, but you really are getting a taste of everything. For the most part, it's like that. Like we're not really getting like an in-depth understanding of any specific modalities. However, two things. I understand the reason for that because there's just so much that we're learning. So it's not like they're not giving it to us because they should, and it's just like they're doing the best with what we can. The other thing that is also really important, I think, is that if you hit on something that does interest you, you absolutely can kind of follow it through your assignments and work. But I think that's a little bit self-directed, it's more self-directed than other things. And it's a thing that I feel like there's some modalities like internal family systems is like, I love that as well, but I'm looking for training outside, but I don't fault PAU because, I know that what I'm learning there, it's a next step. I also do, however, feel like the professors are incredibly open for you. And the question was, did they help guide you? I think I made an effort to talk to a lot of my professors just because I didn't do that as an undergrad, et cetera. And every one of them has been just really helpful, really present. I don't think they say you should do this, but if you say, what should I do? They're very there to kind of help you. So I think that I felt like not one of them did I ever feel like, oh, this isn't, how long is this conversation going to last? What do you want from me? It's always been kind of like this open door, who are you? How can I help? But I don't think necessarily I've had somebody say, you would be great at this, but I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you. Thank you so much. That helps.
Thank you, Melanie. Kiana, did you want to ask your question?
I think it kind of fits in with what Zolma was asking in the chat. I was curious about, I guess it would be you, Hannah, but anyone else as well, about advice or information you have for folks who are already working in the mental health field as paraprofessionals, and like what that experience is like of going back to school after you've already worked in the field for a while, what that transition is like, and what opportunities there are to continue work. Maybe at the same place you're still working. I know that there's internship opportunities where I work currently, and that I could potentially see a clear path to internship back into the same agency. But I'm just curious if you had any feedback or advice about that you've seen for yourself personally, or even with your cohort and other classmates.
Yeah, so I do not have much professional experience. I graduated undergrad, I went to here, I am 23 years old. I am the youngest in my cohort. I am the most inexperienced, so someone more qualified should maybe talk after me. But I have had the privilege of working in and running my own nonprofit charity organization since I was 10 years old. Around the time my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and I've done a lot of work in advocacy in those fields, and learned a lot about serving people what they need, not what you think they need. That has been my biggest development during that. But I think one of the big challenges to that knowledge, and to a lot of my peers who have strong backgrounds of years as teachers or in crisis response settings or whatever that may be, is you know so much and you have so much to offer your peers, and sometimes that knowledge and awareness and grounding can blind you to the differences between this profession and others. Sometimes you really do have to check your knowledge, and that is hard. There are some people who have a specialized population that has extreme vulnerabilities, and you might need to sort of tiptoe around some topics, and there are other populations where you need to be forward and just shoot straight with them, and you need to be able to adapt it to the person in front of you, not what you think people need based on your previous experience. That being said, you will meet people who do tie into that previous experience, and you will hone right in and you will serve them like nobody's business. And it will be an incredible feeling. And I've had a lot of peers who are currently working in the field, or one friend actually works at a practicum site that they will not be doing practicum at because they do not like it. But it gives the opportunity to seek out other connections. They have talked to other people from there and sought out other sites that they are now applying to. And so there are plenty of opportunities to use your previous experiences for connections and to try and kind of find your toehold within the profession through that. And I think it's also great to inform your experience if you do want to work with a specialized population that you have experience with.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Jean, go ahead.
Thanks so much. My questions are really about how to make this work financially. And I see that you've got the 9-quarter and the 11-quarter options. And I just want to know, practically speaking, do you have people doing the 9-quarter path that are working outside of class to earn money? Do you have, is it standard for people in the 11-quarter program to work? Are they working full-time or part-time? And what is the timing of the courses? Are they all during the day? Is the 11-quarter program focused on night courses? How does that work? Thank you.
I'll pipe in for what I can about working, because I'm doing the 9 quarters and I'm working. I am working freelance. So I've been freelancing for a while, and I have one great client who gives me some flexibility and pays well enough to make it like, a don't leave this kind of situation. And and also as a freelancer, traditionally I would take whatever jobs also come around. I've stopped doing that, because it became too much. So I do think that in general, if I'm disciplined and the work is in control, it's certainly possible to do the 9 quarters with work as well, especially because I'm freelancing with the set relationship that I have. The internship has made that more difficult, but I'm still doing it, so it is possible. Again, I'm not working full-time. I do know people who are working full-time at least for the first year. And people are tired, but they can do it. So it is possible. It is hard. I do envy people who don't have to work, but we all have our stories, and we do. And I think everyone's doing as we are all doing as much as we can. So it is possible.
That's super helpful. And I don't want to ask it. Oh, I'm sorry. You have something else.
Oh, I was just going to say that also the classes I'm taking are at night. And I think they're generally all my classes are from 6 to 8. So
that's super. That really makes
really
working during the day a lot easier.
Yeah. And
there's also one other important matter is that it's assuming a full complement of courses every quarter. The first year is easier to work a lot. The second year in the conventional pathway is very difficult because you're also doing site work.
Right.
And so but as has already been said, PAU will work with you flexibly around which classes you take in what order if need be.
That's really helpful. I don't want to ask an inappropriate question, but it is sort of related. Just as far as cost, SJSU has a very good program at a Master of Science in therapy. Did any of the speakers look at them and see differences in the program?
Yeah, I have an opinion about that.
Good.
The CSU programs are fantastic. They are MSs, not MAs. They have very, very small cohorts. If you want to do the work that MS offers you, then boy, try to get into that because they're great programs. That's a minority of people who get masters in psychology. Most masters in psychology, if you want to be an MFT and LPCC, it's usually an MA, not an MS. MS requires a lot of math, requires a GRE too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Shaw, go ahead.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for being here and for answering all our questions. First of all, really appreciate the wisdom you're sharing with us. You're all at different points in the program. You've also graduated the program. I'm wondering, what is one piece of knowledge that you really wish that you had when you were first entering this? So many of us are thinking about this career. We might attend PAU. We might go to a different university. What's one piece of wisdom that you could share with us as we're looking at this? And then I was also wondering about what were the details of the internship process like? Did you send cold emails to these organizations? It sounds like there's a database. I'm kind of curious how that looked for each of you.
Those are both gorgeous questions. Thank you very much. I guess, so for practicum, for me, it was a combination of just cold emailing folks. And I'm going to warn you guys now, some people will not reply. I don't know if y'all have experience dealing with medical professionals in general. Sometimes people just are not responsive. It is the worst. I believe in you. You can do it. You might just have to throw out a lot. I was very afraid that I was going to have to turn places down. I did not. They were not responsive enough. There's one who just got back to me 2 weeks after I signed my contract with another, being like, hey, we can finally get you in for an interview. Like, that is it. However, Palo Alto does host, and I cannot recommend this enough. This is where I found my site, where I got a connection with my site supervisor, the Practicum Fair. They host it They said at this quarter, I had my site a week later, like full contract signed and everything. Because those ones are active, involved, they know PAU, and they are excited about their students. So I would really, really recommend trying to connect through the practicum fair. And I see that Lisa benefited from that as well. One like piece of advice I would give, one thing to consider is outside of practicum, the first question you asked, is to, I think sometimes we have this idea that we need to get rid of judgment, and you will not. If you get rid of judgment, if you are actually blinding yourself to your judgments. There is a huge difference. If you think you are not a judgmental person, you've just become out of touch with how judgmental you may be. You need to be willing and able to face your biases, your fears, everything in this program if you want to be able to serve particularly diverse clients well. Clients from backgrounds you have not seen or treated before. You need to be open to everything that you are not yet. And that is an awful experience. It is so uncomfortable. It is not fun, and it is great. It has been the time of my life and awful, and I cannot recommend it enough. There's no right words to explain the experience of trying to like remove all of your bias over a year, because it's not going to work. It's just to know that this is a lifelong, ongoing process of growth that you need to be willing to keep engaging with. And if you can go into a program with an open mind and an eagerness and a gratitude to break down those parts of yourself a little bit, I promise you, you will build yourself back up so much stronger. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you for your question. Does anyone else have any questions?
I think the question that's unanswered in the the chat is the difference between practicum and internship.
I just answered that. It was practicum is, everyone wants to know that. Nobody does until you have to. So practicum is the first 40 hours of your experience. And after you finish the first 40 hours, then you officially go into your internship. And that's the only difference. And then that's, you have to finish 240 hours of direct client experience.
Thank you, Lisa. Heather, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for sharing so much. I really appreciate it. Lisa, I just heard you say that you have to complete 240 hours. Are you not talking about the 3,000 hours that you have to complete in order to become a licensed therapist?
You have to complete in your internship it's part of it, but you have, before graduating, you have to complete at least 240 hours of direct client hours. And I think it's like, I forgot the total hours. It's maybe 600 hours, including indirect.
That's
and I believe that, what's that? Is that right?
700 for total. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes. And then, so after that, it goes toward your 3,000 hours, but that 3,000 hours is what you have to do ultimately until you can take your test.
Super. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. And the question that I actually wanted to ask is just the gender diversity and the age diversity in the cohorts that the three panelists experienced. And Tanya, if you have perspective on the cohorts in general, I'd really appreciate it. It's very specifically, more specifically related to age.
I'll whack that pinata, given I'm the oldest one here. There's a really great range of ages in all the experiences I've had at PAU, and really, I feel a real acceptance of the fact that a range of ages just makes sense, particularly, I mean, always, period, but also in this field. Yeah, and there's a great deal of other kinds of diversity, which I can't really speak to because I don't have a stats sheet in front of me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one other thing. There aren't as many men as our culture really needs in these programs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we could all be working on is because we're all related usually to some man there that could be becoming a therapist.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Taylor, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah. So for the hybrid courses being Monday through Thursday, how do those break down in regards to which days are in person and which days are online?
Yeah, so for the hybrid option, you're going to be taking 2 classes in person. Each of those classes you'll be in person once a week. And so, like you said, it's going to be Monday through Thursday, and the actual day that those classes fall on are going to depend on the quarter and which classes you're going to be taking. So I can't tell you specifically what days that's going to be until we actually get there. But yeah, you'll be on campus twice a week, once for each class.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. And we are at the end of our time. So for anyone that needs to head out, feel free. Thank you so much for joining us. For the panelists, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us such insightful experience. And I will be sticking back for anyone that has any admissions questions. I'll also put my email in the chat. I welcome the panelists to do the same. But again, thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.